Hey, welcome back to Everyday Economics, the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug. I'm publisher of the Center Square. Everyday Economics is brought to you by the Center Square. To support Everyday Economics, please make a tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We are recording this episode on Friday, February 7th, and joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, and my co-host, Dr. Orphe Divounguy, PhD economist. You can check out Dr. O every Monday at the Center Square. He writes the week ahead Everyday Economics column. It gives you an idea of what's coming up. This is the companion podcast show to that column. And first blush, what do we got next week? Oh, we got some interesting, we're going to get inflation data. We're going to get consumer price index coming out midweek. And we're also going to get producer prices coming out next week.
I want to start the week with the survey of consumer expectations, right?
There we go.
Inflation expectations, right? Where you think inflation is going to be next month, next year, the year after that, is going to play a big role in the decisions, the type of decisions that you make with your consumer finances, with your finances, right? You know, if you think prices are going to be rising faster in the months or year ahead, what do? Well, you tend to go out and shop today, right? You buy stuff today. You start hoarding a bunch of stuff today because you expect prices of those things to go up faster. And you probably think, hey, I may not be able to afford them in the future, right? So if inflation expectations are rising, then that's a worry for the Fed, especially a Fed that's trying to bring inflation lower, right? You end up with consumers that go out and spend more. You end up with workers trying to negotiate higher wages, right? And then you get stronger wage growth, right? And so, and then you could get, if things continue to go out of control, right? And inflation expectations, basically continue to rise, you can get that wage price spiral that everyone was kind of talking about. So by the way, this is the segment of the show where we try to kind of educate a little bit, right? Our audience, we want to make sure they understand why inflation expectations matter so much, right? When we think about whether or not Fed policy is closer to neutral, right? Inflation expectations matter a lot.
Okay.
And so that's why this is the first of the reports. This is the first of the reports I'm going to be caring about a lot. I'm going to be paying attention. We had an uptick last month up to 3.5%, which had me worried that perhaps the current policy rate is not all that restrictive. Anyway, then we're followed this week with the other report that I'm going to be paying attention is the consumer price index. Of course, that's the first of the two inflation reports that we get every month. The consumer price index and then the producer price index, 2.9% year over year. Strong, but basically stuck.
Yep.
All right. Headline inflation basically stuck. Then we had core inflation and core inflation, same thing, around 3.2, 3.3%. We saw a slight uptick last month. But there's going to be a big, I think there's still much of the drag is coming from the housing sector. I think the housing sector is going to continue to drag down core inflation, at least for the first half of this year. We do have, though, energy prices being a bit of a problem when it comes to the pressure on inflation. Energy prices and food prices continuing to be part of a part of the problem, which is why I think headline inflation has been so sluggish to come down to move forward.
Honestly, I mean, for the people that are out there that are in this conversation with us, that are watching us or listening to us, I mean, if you shop for yourself, you're seeing it. I mean, and one of the things about human beings is we like to eat every day, And for most of us, that means we have to shop at least once a week. And those prices seem stuck. I mean, and not to get into the, the cost of eggs thing. But
yeah, we got that flu, bird flu, right?
That's what I'm told.
That's probably going to be reflected in the price of eggs too. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't expect prices to fall, but I expect price growth to ease. I expect the increase in prices to slow down. Unfortunately, we had some strong disinflation, and then it looks like it has somewhat stalled. You look at the producer price index, there's this notion that, what producers are paying is going to eventually show up in the consumer price, in the prices consumers end up paying for things. And you look at the producer price index, and it's actually been on a slight uptick in the last 3 months or so. I would say maybe even 6 months. And so those are things that to me are somewhat concerning, that potentially we're not making a ton of progress on the inflation front yet.
That's right. We did an episode I think it was maybe about a month ago. I mean, I was within the last few weeks about is 3% inflation, going to be the new normal. I mean, 3% inflation is hanging around. I mean,
yes.
When you look at the year,
it's hanging around. But I think if you see the labor market continue to cool down, right?
Yes.
The labor market is strong but cooling. If you see the labor market continuing to cool down,
yes,
you're likely going to see, I think, inflation, at least the demand-driven inflation, ease. Right? There's not a lot the Fed can do about supply side, right? About shocks to the supply side. I know you don't like the weather-related stuff and the wars.
Who likes the weather-related stuff? I'm also not a big fan of war, but nonetheless.
I chose my words carefully. I said weather instead of climate for a reason, because I know people like to debate this stuff. But ultimately, those shocks could prevent further disinflation because of the way they affect the supply side mostly.
Right.
So anyway, I think that's that. I think that those are the things I'm going to be paying attention to. We're probably going to get we're also going to get the retail sales report at the end of the week. And it's going to be for January. So
I don't want to push this past 10 minutes because I mean, that's, but I do want to raise this point. And in the week ahead, there is something significant on the calendar, and that's Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is going to be in front of Congress on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this, and I don't want to race you through an answer.
No.
But I'm just going to ask you. I'm just going to ask you to be thoughtful and tight about this. What do you think they're going to ask him, and how do you think that's going to go?
Well, I mean, the line of questioning, honestly, from politicians from both parties has been somewhat disappointing to watch for me. The line of questioning just spells kind of a lack of economic education. So I feel for the Fed chair going in front of, I really do, because you're going to have one side wanting for interest rates to come down because they think somehow that cutting the Fed, the policy rate is going to result in lower mortgage rates, which we know is not true and hasn't happened. We saw the Fed cut and cut again, and we saw mortgage rates increase instead, right? And so they're probably going to talk to him about housing affordability challenges and as if, and really the Fed has been working very hard to actually improve affordability by basically fighting inflation, right? While Washington, D.C. has not done much in order to cut deficit spending that has actually been part of the reason for inflation remaining somewhat stubborn. So So the you know, here you have a Fed chair that's really trying, doing the job for consumers, and you have Congress that is going to grill him
Yes.
on a job that I think is a job well done, where basically the same Congress had been basically fighting the Fed with policy making at the federal level, government level, that was not conducive to bringing inflation lower faster. And so, unfortunately, he's going to have to go through that again. We saw what happened last time.
Well, and I always appreciate your empathy for everyone, including Chairman Powell. Let's call it good there, Dr. O. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics wherever you get your podcasts, and listen to Orphe and me every week on the Center Square Radio Hour.